Kate Nash, writer and founder of Purple Space. We are delighted to collaborate with MSD, known as Merck, in the US and Canada on this Authenticity series, a collection of 7 conversations with extraordinary colleagues about their experiences of disability and work. It can be difficult to work for a large corporation and talk about your disability experience. That's true in the pharmaceutical industry and indeed across the full range of organisations that we work with at Purple Space. In publishing these conversations, MSD wants to help normalise the experience of disability by sharing the stories of colleagues with both direct and indirect experience of disability. In so doing, MSD aims to help colleagues with disabilities and allies to build resilience and trust, to make it easier for them to share their stories and, when it is required, request the adjustments or the accommodations they need to thrive. In this conversation, we meet Greg Hersch. Greg heads up strategy at Merck, known as MSD outside of the United States and Canada, and has responsibility for enterprise risk management, as well as one of the largest pharmaceutical digital health venture funds. Greg grew up in Los Angeles and has lived in Boston, Prague, Basel, and now lives in central New Jersey. He started his early career in technology, but then moved on to become a biochemist with a doctorate from MIT. In addition to Merck, Greg's former employers include Boston Consulting Group and Novartis. He is married with 2 teenage boys whose interests include science and law. Greg's personal interests include technology and automation, home improvement projects, and he spends a lot of time relearning physics and pre-calculus with his son. We offer our thanks to Greg for sharing his experience as a father and caregiver to a child with a disability so that others might learn from his story and insights. I hope you enjoy listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Greg, it is wonderful to meet you, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Hello.
Hi.
Let's tuck in. So my first question, Greg, is about the lessons that you have learned from being a father and a caregiver, the things that have influenced your own views on inclusion and accessibility in the workplace and beyond. What have you learned about yourself and from others?
So first off, I'm just really happy to be here. Thanks very much for inviting me. And I have seen firsthand the creativity and ingenuity that goes along with adapting to a disability. And at the same time, in my role as a strategist, I've seen the importance of divergent thinking and challenging the status quo. And frankly, that's something that we just don't have enough of. And by being the father of a very smart and incredibly and frustratingly persistent person with a disability, I have seen that a certain degree of advocacy is required by others to get him into a situation where he can do his best work. And I can give you an example. There was, and we are just finishing the school year now, but a few months ago, he was starting to struggle with math all of a sudden. And I took a look at one of his tests. I asked, to get it at home. And I saw that he was being asked to write in a pretty small space. And to these answers and to word problems, which can be quite extensive. And what you need to know about my son, right, is that he does everything with his feet. He does everything with his legs. He lost the ability to use his arms very early in life. And for him to try to use his feet to write in this very small area was incredibly challenging. And by going back and saying, hey, he needs not just a different piece of paper to work on, but he needs more room where you're asking him to do his work, completely changed his ability to do this work. And he ended up being in the top of the class after this change was made. So how does that translate to the workplace? Well, in the workplace, I think what that means is we need to be willing to be flexible for someone to do their best work. This often and sometimes will mean physical adaptation, but more holistically, this means understanding the environment that people need. And I use that actually as an interview question, everybody that we bring into our group. In what environment do you do your best work? But there are also those of us who are caregivers, right? Either in acute situations, which are those points in life that become incredibly challenging all of a sudden, or in more chronic caregiving situations. And then there are situations also where a colleague is just facing a challenging life event. And some of my more junior team members may be experiencing these types of events for the very first time ever in their career. And my experiences with my son and with my colleagues allow me to help people see the strengths that they have in themselves, to not feel alone, and to know that these events are often expected times of life that are not going to be unmanageable with their job. They can do it, even if sometimes that may be or mean taking a step back for a while. Every situation is different, and accommodations need to fit the situation. But I would say, as a result of my experiences, I feel much more confident to be able to help people through these situations and work so that they can get their best work done in our company.
Greg, really powerful. You can see sharply the direct link between you as a father, as a caregiver, and the stories of your son, and how that links to your role as a senior advocate in your company. It's wonderful stuff. Let's build on that, if we may, Greg. I wonder if you could offer up any initiatives or examples from your organization that has helped foster a more inclusive culture for employees, particularly with caregiving
Mm.
responsibilities. And indeed, building from that, have you ever had to change or adapt your approach to live a balanced life, or to support others to do that?
It's a great question. I feel very fortunate to work in a company that does have a very inclusive culture. And it's a very special company. And an example of the support that we have would be our flexible work arrangement program, which as a caregiver myself, I truly have benefited from. And, I recently lost someone in my family, my immediate family, and it has affected, in particular, one of my parents very, very deeply. Um, a lot more is being put on me as a son to be present and available. And in effect, I become, an emotional caregiver in a very intense time. And, it's a little bit unpredictable. And, I never quite know when I'm going to just need to step away from what I'm doing. But I've been very appreciative that my company has stepped up and given me the room to have that engagement. And they've even clearly signaled that I have much more flexibility than I'm using. And that's even in what I would say is a very intense time for our industry and being in a pretty critical role for managing and navigating through those changes that we're facing.
Very powerful, Greg, and really heartening to see how your company has stepped up to that. Because of course we all lead very complex, very busy lives, and from time to time we do have to step back and lean in to the stories of our loved ones in a different way. So that's incredibly powerful. I wonder if we could think now and just talk through some of the challenges that employees face when trying to balance caregiving and work. What are the things that organizations can do to offer a more tailored support?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not easy, right? And there is no perfect solution. There's life can be very challenging, and caregiving is one of those things that we often, as a family member, have responsible to step up and fit into. And one of the benefits of our company is that we offer compassionate leave, and that's 10 days per calendar year paid time off. that employees can use to deal with personal or family emergencies. And that bereavement following the death of a loved one, other challenging situations like supporting a loved one with a serious medical condition or handling domestic violence issues. So there's pretty generous parental leave benefits as well. And those, as well as other programs, of course, can vary globally. We're a multinational company, and we need to adapt to fit the situation. I have most experience, obviously, with our U.S. environment, but I'd say worldwide, we're very. This is a very generous company for those types of things.
Wonderful, Greg. Any other examples of resources or best practices that the company has implemented to support employees in caregiving roles?
Yeah, look, there's the Caregiver Connect community that's within our capability network. It's one of our EBRGs, or Employee Business Resource Groups, and we have subgroups as part of that. For example, for caregivers for adults, parents and adult children, and caregivers of children with disabilities, including young adults. And the connections that our employees are making enable them and help them to navigate the challenges of caregiving, and gives them a strong sense of belonging in what's obviously can be a very tough time.
Mm, wonderful. We know at first hand the fantastic work of the communities of the capability network that they've set up, and indeed the
Mhm.
caregiving community within that. It's wonderful to see, Greg.
Mhm.
So moving on now to, I suppose, leadership and advocacy as we start to come to a close of our conversation. Again, as a father, as a caregiver, how has your personal journey inspired your advocacy for individuals with disabilities, both within the company and maybe more broadly within the community?
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak about that. Obviously, it's a very personal component of my journey. And over the last 15 years, I'd say my family and I have become part of a very exclusive club that really nobody seeks to join. I have learned about what it is to be different as much as a parent can, and what it means to do things differently. And I was told very early on in this journey with my son that I won't be able to figure out how to do things differently for him. I need to give him the space to tell me how he's going to do things differently. And I think having people make assumptions about what cannot be done is part of that journey. And I don't want to believe that these perceptions will shut out opportunities for my son, but I have to. And it should not be this way, but that is how it is. And I want all people, including all members of my family, to have the conditions to be able to do their best work and to contribute meaningfully to endeavors such as improving the lives of patients. And some of the return on investments of things that we can do as a company and other institutions can do, the return on investment is incredibly high. And the work that is produced by individuals with passion and appreciation for the opportunity just well makes up for any effort that it takes to set up that accommodation. And I'd say, thinking back, to before this experience, early on in my career, and after I had just gone into the workplace, I would like to tell you that I would have been just as eager to invest in accommodation, but that probably wouldn't be truthful. Um, However, I have been privileged to work at a company that truly values enabling people and has that wisdom of the return on investment. And just not only is the right thing to do, it's what you need to have those kind of divergent thinking, that divergent thinking and that ability to bring people in to challenge the status quo. You know, that is so valuable, and that recognizing the differences that can lead to overall strength and resiliency as an organization. So I'm very proud to work at a company that values this, but I know that they can do more. I know we can do more, and I really want my son to have those kinds of opportunities, as well as everybody who can bring something different to our mission.
Greg, how wonderful. A lovely place to finish our conversation. You speak with such passion, with such commitment, and the way in which you can apply your advocacy within your own leadership role within the business is just wonderful. You inspire us all. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being you, Greg.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.